IGN's Next Big Game brings fans inside the biggest video games of the year. Today's episode is all about Call of Duty World War II. We'll tell you everything you need to know and pay a visit to Sledgehammer Games for an exclusive look at Call of Duty's return to its roots. I'm Max Scoville, and this is Next Big Game. Call of Duty is one of the most popular series in history, and this fall, Sledgehammer Games is taking the series back to its roots with Call of Duty World War II. While the Call of Duty series got its start on PC with a single-player campaign focused on recreating authentic World War II combat, it was the popularity of the later game's multiplayer on consoles that cemented it as the biggest shooter franchise of all time. In the 14 years since its debut, Call of Duty has explored a variety of conflicts, real, fictional, and somewhere in between, while building an arsenal of highly realistic military hardware and somehow managing to squeeze in a side of zombies, spaceships, Jeff Goldblum, and a dog who can take down helicopters. With all that in mind, you might be wondering, how will Call of Duty World War II simultaneously shake things up and get back to basics? Well, here is everything you need to know about Call of Duty World War II. Call of Duty games have spent the better part of the last decade jumping forward in time. The most recent outing found soldiers flying spaceships and zapping enemies in zero-G battles high above planets. This year, the series parachutes back down to Earth, specifically World War II-era Europe, when the greatest generation answered the call to stomp down the Nazi regime.
Well, ain't that something, Fritz?
The single-player campaign follows a familiar path for World War II stories. You play as Private Ronald "Red" Daniels, a young soldier whose division spends D-Day storming the beaches of Normandy before proceeding across Europe. Along the way, you fight in famous skirmishes like the liberation of Paris and the Battle of the Bulge. This year's Call of Duty is being developed by Sledgehammer Games, a company founded by the former leads of Visceral, makers of the Dead Space series, so don't expect the game to skirt the horrors of war. If recent Call of Duties have gotten you accustomed to using jetpack boosts as you litter the ground with plasma grenades, you'll need to recalibrate to a more historical mindset for World War II. The focus here is realistic combat, performed with period-appropriate weaponry. Your health doesn't even regenerate automatically anymore. Instead, you'll wait for a medic to come and treat your wounds. On the multiplayer side, they've scrapped the familiar create a class system in favor of preset divisions. You can choose the well-balanced infantry, the fast and quiet airborne, and the heavy-duty armored troops, among others. Thanks to an RPG-like leveling system, you can specialize in any division to eventually unlock a special weapon. As always, you can expect to find multiplayer modes like Team Deathmatch and a King of the Hill mode. The big addition this year is War Mode, which lets you participate in famous World War II battles. Players are automatically assigned to either the Allies or Axis forces. Each side is then tasked with different incremental objectives to overrun the enemy. Between missions, you'll no longer be stuck staring at a menu. Instead, you're whisked away to Headquarters, a social lobby where you can view leaderboards, practice using the weapons, and challenge other players to one-on-one combat. Instead of embracing the campy aspect of previous games, the zombie mode, dubbed Nazi Zombies, sees the developers tapping their Dead Space roots to go full-on horror this time around. Expect lots of blood, gore, and tension in service of delivering a chilling experience. The core zombie gameplay will remain the same. You and up to 3 teammates will defend against waves of zombies while unlocking new areas of the map. The developers say they put a lot of effort into easing newcomers into the zombie mode, but emphasize that the maps are more layered this time around, with lots of hidden areas and Easter eggs. Call of Duty World War II launches on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on November 3rd. Recently, we were fortunate enough to take a trip to Sledgehammer Games for a chance to chat about Call of Duty World War II with the game's creators. Here's an exclusive look inside the studio behind this year's biggest military shooter.
Gone above and beyond to really depict just how brutal the war was from a moment-to-moment perspective in terms of gameplay, but also narratively. The fans have had an appetite, and they've vocalize their appetite for a World War II game, but also the developers. A lot of us are gamers, and a lot of us were excited at the idea of playing another World War II game.
For AW, it was a fiction story, and there was a lot of artistic liberty that we could take, whereas this story it's nonfiction. It's something that really happened. There was a lot of people who died, tens of millions of people. It was something that was really important to get right.
It's such an epic event. It's something that touched every corner of the globe. It's something that is romanticized a lot in films. It's something that the younger generation has access to, and for us to be able to give them the opportunity to play this on PS4, on the Xbox One, and on PC is great.
When you have a higher res image, you can see a lot more detail and a lot more clarity. Our faces, they read a lot better. You can see pores and certain facial hairs. You can see details in the eyes. And those details actually are more important than other kind of details, because when we're trying to evoke emotion, those need to look as real as possible.
You're a long way from Texas, farm boy.
The story really focuses on the reliance of your squad mates and the reliance of a strong partnership and a bond between you and your brothers at war.
No mission too difficult. No sacrifice too great.
When you think iconic, you think Normandy. We do an amazing job at depicting the Normandy invasion.
Obviously, there's Saving Private Ryan, which is the most known experience. Ours is different in a lot of ways. There are these wooden beams that are sticking out of the ground, and you'll notice that they're facing towards the ocean. Well, that's actually historically inaccurate. The function of those were, when the boats come in, they're supposed to ride up the pole, and then there's a landmine attached to it. The way we have it is it's facing the right direction.
Gentlemen, we're on the verge of the biggest operation of the entire war.
The new AI systems have been stood up from the ground up. We have new gameplay mechanics such as squad abilities, the morale system. So a lot of that sort of enforces the narrative of your reliance on squad mates, but at the same time introduces new gameplay mechanics. War mode is something I'm very excited about. If you're into multiplayer and you really gravitate towards multiplayer, but you might be intimidated by the competitive nature of core MP, war mode is a great way to put yourself in a different space, still enjoy the competitive nature of multiplayer, but it's a little more casual.
The crowd intel is going to help win the war.
Personally, I'm very excited to play this game, but I'm also excited to bring the game and present the game to a new generation of gamers who haven't had a chance to experience a Call of Duty World War II experience with improved rendering techniques, new AI, and new gameplay mechanics.
Going back to our roots is really powerful, and it's something that the hardcore older generation will appreciate, and the newer generation of gamers, I think, is going to find refreshing.
Call of Duty World War II hits Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC on November 3rd, and you can find out lots more about it on IGN. Be sure to follow Next Big Game on Facebook and share this episode with your friends. Next week, we're going to be talking about this fall's other huge AAA shooter, Star Wars Battlefront 2. And if you haven't yet, check out our previous episodes about Super Mario Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins. Until next time, I'm Max Scoville, and this is The Next Big Game.